Hello, it's Polish Pol VR. Welcome to the channel. We are here today to review the Dark Pictures Switchback VR for PlayStation VR2 from the developer Supermassive Games. This is the sequel to Until Dawn Rush of Blood. The game that maybe when it's first released had maybe those kind of mid-range reviews, but after a while become definitely a classic among PSVR titles, and some people playing it until today. But of course it's only so many years you can play same game. So it's nice to see that the developers releasing the sequel finally and for the next generation hardware as well. The story is kind of hard to follow, but basically you are on this train, metro train let's say, and it crashes. And after that crash you end up in this state of death and you're going into a wild roller coaster ride which gonna take you through the levels of the Dark Pictures anthology, which you can play flat on PS5 right now or on PS4. Now, gameplay wise, you've been placed in a cart on a roller coaster, and off you go fighting your opponents. You can choose 3 difficulty levels from easy to super hard. But remember, when you die, you're gonna see the loading screen every time, and they are quite long, especially for the Sony's SSD standards. They are on a longer side. There is 5 levels and they all split into the 2 sub-levels. Thankfully, the game supports autosaves, so if you need to switch it off, it's probably gonna put you where you left it, so that's okay. The levels themselves feature a lot of different mechanics. Each level gives you like this kind of special weapon, and with this weapon you can solve some light environmental puzzles. Sadly, sometimes those environmental puzzles / environmental weapons / special weapons can detract from the action. It's only so many signs you can shoot, especially if you've been shooting symbols in level before. But then some other mechanics are pretty cool, like you can use environment to set enemies on fire or squish them using your special gun. So it's hit and miss on each level. What's good about those levels is the tension themselves. It's a horror game and sometimes it's a bit of a cliche, let's say. But sometimes it gets scary, sometimes you're just gonna think, really? Are the developers really doing that to me? And it's pretty cool. Enemies can really pop in your face. You've got tons of different types of enemies which you have to handle, similar but sometimes slightly different. You've got tiny enemies which are harder to shoot, you've got normal sized enemies, you've got flying enemies, you've got flying small enemies like bats. The little baby dolls, they are freaky, some leeches latching into your face, there is a lot to choose from. Now the levels themselves are quite large, the tracks change slightly from the Rush of Blood, so this time it's not this wooden track but more of a metal, let's say, steel roller coaster track. Saying that, I think they made them maybe slightly slower, but I think they also wanted to add maybe more tension to the gameplay. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Sometimes the game will stop you, the strange things gonna start happening around you, you're gonna know, you're gonna get scared, and you still gonna get scared because the developer is gonna think of some crazy way to scare you. Now, speaking about those levels, we have to speak about the graphics as well. The game suffers from a bit of aliasing. There is plenty of special effects going on, but some of them can feel a bit subpar. Sometimes you can look at the wall just to see the fire being just a flat texture, moving texture of a fire. And there is some other, let's say, maybe lower quality assets, and those assets can repeat themselves throughout the levels as well. Also, in the more open locations, maybe when the lights get brighter, the game does suffer from quite significant popping. Also, saying that, I need to say one thing about the graphics. This is the best use of HDR on PlayStation VR2 I saw so far. Gone is the Smura effect, what you saw in so many games. Here, the blacks are totally black, a pitch black, and that's great because, of course, it's a horror game. I mentioned the fire, but also it is very bright, let's say, and very colorful. Sometimes you can go from the dark area to the bright area just to have this feeling on your eyes, like They're not painful, but you're feeling that you know that the environment really changed. Great use of HDR. I want to see more of that in more of PlayStation VR2 games. Moving on to the maybe animation, let's speak about that. In Rush of Blood you've had this dude before each level talking to you, and he was animated super awesomely, definitely mock-up. Been there, and you could see it's had this higher quality, higher production value, let's say. Here there is not that much talking, there's not that much, let's say, characters being on screen anyway, but the main boss, the main opponent, let's say, appears a lot throughout the game, and animation of this character is not that great. You can tell there is no mock-up at all being used. It's quite poor animation, you know, it can detract from the fact that it is a high quality game, but this make it feel just slight more lower budget. Also what they change is in Rush of Blood you've had full body avatar. Here you are just those hands, and with those hands of course you holding the weapons. Now some of you might appreciate it because you might see more, some of you might want to have full body avatar like in Rush of Blood. Sadly there is no option, you just have to be those floating hands. Now let's move on. I'm not gonna call it sound, we're gonna call this section of the review New Real, which is everything what Sony got on offer. And let's begin from haptics, which are great throughout the game. You can see feel tiniest bumps of the track, and also adaptive trigger are put to get the great use, saying that it's been hard for me to distinguish different weapons with the adaptive trigger. You've got about 4 or 5 different weapons, the main weapons, I'm not saying special weapons, and sometimes I felt maybe like they felt the same, unless the action was so fast that I couldn't just spot it anyway. Now environmental sound and 3D sound definitely adds to the tension. You can hear your opponents far away, getting closer to you, being around you, being behind you as well, very scary. All accompanied by great music score, which is this kind of like a classic music vibes, and it's worked great with this game. Same classic music, classic horror music vibe, very nice. All in all, to play through the game, it's about 4.5 hours, maybe 4 hours on the easiest difficulty, 4.5 on the medium, and maybe let's say 5 on the hardest difficulty. But that's only for one playthrough. The tracks split in, you know, in the different directions. There is some things what you can do in the game as well. Let's say have some options, and the game will display you at the end of each level which options you choose. Sadly, it's hard to read because of the aliasing I mentioned before. So I don't know what's going on here, but definitely the text-wise, at least on the menus at the end of the level, I couldn't read what I did and what I not do. Anyway, let's move on to the score. So I must say I got feeling that this game, just like the first one, not gonna win over the critics, and also I know I moaned quite a lot in this review as well, but all in all it all comes down to the fun. And did I had fun? And I must say yes. Do I want to play again to get better score, to go through the different sections of the level? Yes, so I'm gonna say buy this game, enjoy it. Many of you already got it pre-ordered anyway, and just have fun. I'm sure with time it's gonna be as highly regarded as the first one, which maybe with the critics didn't go down the grade, but it did with the players, and that's what matters. That's it. Bye.